Okay, hi, we want to talk about the subframe. And on some of the videos we talked about why we're disconnecting certain items. And so now that we have the subframe out, we are going to show you why we detached or took off some of the parts that we did. So if we look down here, remember that subframe that we built out of 2x4s? Well, this is why we did it, so that it will go around the perimeter, give us some support, give us a lifting point, and not be in the way of taking out the bolts. Those are your 4 subframe bolts. So, here are some highlights of why we removed some of your sway bar or your stabilizer bracket. See, this is why we took it off here, because this is going to stay with your subframe. You want to try to keep everything on your subframe that you can, so that when you put it back up, you're not losing anything. Here is your sway bar. So that stayed with here also. I know in one of the videos they talked about taking these things off. I'm not sure why, but we left ours on. And I guess we'll know better once we put it back in whether or not there's some reason why other people have indicated to take those things off. Here is why we've taken off the brakes and the brake assembly and all that very heavy items, because when you're pulling this out, when you bring this down, this has to be taken off of this, because you're going to need the jack for other things unless you have more jacks. So we just lifted this back on here for demonstration purposes, and of course it's nice to bring it up and down, but guess what? You're going to need that jack again. We store this underneath the car, keep it out of the weather. One thing that we failed to mention is there's a boot that goes in the front of the car, and that boot gets attached here. So you need to take those anchor points out. And again, it's a plastic boot here. And when we when we put it back together, we'll show you that part there. We had forgotten that in addition to having contact points here, there's a contact point here that's on the subframe, also on the other side, and in the front you have that weather boot that has those clips also on your subframe. So when you get ready to take off your subframe, look for any other pieces that might be that are on there, because we can't be 100% thorough about what we do. We're trying to. We're going back and redoing some of the videos to make sure we give you an accurate picture of what we've done. So again, here's the subframe. Here are some anchor points for the transmission. Here's the I think it's a steering knuckle that goes inside, so you can see the slips in there. So we'll lube that up before we stick it back in. Transmission point. This is basically it. And when we put it back on, what we're going to do is we'll set the frame of the wood on our jack, and then we'll set this up here, get it all balanced, and set it back up underneath there, and get our anchors. And here is why you support your radiator. Your radiator sits right in here and here, so the subframe supports your radiator. So important to tie your radiator up, because if not, when your subframe comes down, so does your radiator. So tie that up.